Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Selamat datang diucapkan dan jutaan terima kasih kepada semua penonton yang sudi meluangkan masa untuk mengikuti program Bedah Buku 2021 Anjuran Pusat Sumber Institut Pendidikan Guru Kampus Bahasa Antarabangsa. Pertama sekali izinkan saya memperkenalkan diri saya. Saya Norhana binti Mak Filus, Ketua Pusat Sumber RPG Kampus Bahasa Antarabangsa. Selaku penganjur program Bedah Buku 2021 pada petang ini, saya akan memulakan sesi dengan memberi sedikit maklumat berkaitan program ini. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati sekalian, untuk makluman, program Bedah Buku yang anda sedang saksikan ini adalah salah satu program pada tahun 2021 yang dianjurkan oleh Pusat Sumber RPG Kampus Bahasa Antarabangsa dan ini akan dilaksanakan secara aktiviti bulanan. Setiap bulan seorang pembentang dimulai dengan pengarah, diikuti oleh timbalan pengarah dan seterusnya ketua-ketua jabatan dan ketua-ketua unit akan membedah buku pilihan masing-masing. Untuk makluman semua juga, program ini dilaksanakan bertujuan untuk mencapai beberapa objektif. Pertama ialah untuk memperkasakan budaya membaca dan perkongsian ilmu dalam kalangan warga KPM. Kedua, untuk meningkatkan ilmu dan pengetahuan tentang topik yang dibincangkan supaya ianya dapat diaplikasi dalam situasi sebenar. Ketiga, ialah untuk menyokong usaha kerajaan menuju negara membaca pada tahun 2030. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan sekalian, untuk tidak melengahkan masa, kita akan mulakan episod pertama program Bedah Buku 2021 ini. Pusat Sumber merasa amat berbesar hati kerana En.Aliyas bin Said, pengarah RPG Kampus Bahasa Antarabangsa sendiri sudi menjadi pembedah pertama sekaligus merasmikan program Bedah Buku ini. Tuan, sudah bersedia?
Ya.
Dipersilakan.
Okey, terima kasih Puan Norhana, Ketua Pusat Sumber Institut Pendidikan Guru Bahasa Antarabangsa, dan tahniah kerana dapat menganjurkan program sebegini bagi mencapai objektif-objektif seperti yang telah disebutkan tadi. Aktiviti yang sebegini adalah juga merupakan contoh perkara yang menjadi tema utama dalam buku yang saya akan bedah ini. Okey, saya teruskan dengan memperkenalkan sedikit mengenai buku yang saya akan buat, bedah buku. Okay, buku yang saya masukkan adalah buku ini yang berjudul Culture Built to Last, Systemic PLC at Work. Buku ini co-authored by two well-known authors, that is Richard Dufour and Michael Fullan. So a little bit about the book first. This is a concise, well-written book published in 2013. And the author, Richard Dufour, is a leading authority on helping school practitioners implement professional learning communities at work. And he's an author of more than 20 books on PLC and school improvement. While Michael Fullan is a well-recognized internationally authority on educational reform with the mandate of helping to achieve the moral purpose of all children learning.
Okay, Cik Alias, can I ask a question? So this is not a new book. So why do you decide to choose this book?
Okay, as you rightly pointed out, this book is published in 2013, which considering on the topic is not a very new. But to answer your question, I must relate a bit on the setting of this book. This book is written mainly based on the American school system prior to 2013. Though it's not a new thing, but some of the ideas that expounded in this book by the two authors has been taken up by many education system, including ours. So I think it's good. I think it's good just to revisit and look back, and maybe we can compare. Because as this book is written, it's written as a roadmap on how to implement PLC in a systemic way. Thus, revisiting it maybe give us an idea of where we are and what improvement that we can do to make our effort, a better effort. So I think as for now, maybe that might answer as to why I chose a 2013 book to do the book dissection on. Okay, back to this book. As I said just now, it's a very concise book, and the theming of these two authorities on school improvement and education reform in this book is an effort to continue support for PLC as a process and recasting PLC from just another innovation for individual schools to a central instrument for changing the culture of education system at a district, state, and nationwide level. As the author pointed out in this book, the purpose of the book is to convince reader that if PLC process is to impact education beyond individual schools or isolated district, the process must be the driving force of the entire system. And PLC is a process. It's not a program. That is what continuously and repeatedly emphasized in this book. And the third thing is every person in the system has an obligation to be an instrument for cultural change rather than leaving it to somebody else to do it for them. And these three are the recurring themes or points that are emphasized throughout the book. Again, as I said, the book is concise. It's only 91 pages, 80 pages if not including the reference and the indexes. And it is organized in chapters that presented as a roadmap for going systemic and going big with PLC. In the first two chapters, the authors laid the foundation on how to go big with PLC in a systemic way. And in chapter 1, titled Clarity Precedes Competence, this chapter focuses on clarifying the meaning of a professional learning community by reviewing 6 characteristics of high-performing PLCs and the 3 big ideas underpinning this characteristic. The 3 big ideas are the relentless focus on learning for all students, collaborative culture and collective effort to support students and adult learning, and result orientation, that is to improve practice and drive continuous improvement. And the author also discussed in this chapter the 4 critical questions that help educators focus on learning for all students. While chapter 2, creating coherence and clarity, examines the critical challenge of any systemic reform, that is, how to achieve coherence and clarity. elements of coherence, elements of coherence, that is alignment and mindset, were addressed in this chapter. Alignment to policies and structure are important, but more important are the collective mindset of individual across the system, or what is termed as collective coherence. The common barriers to coherence, which is failing to widely disperse leadership, failing to communicate purpose and priorities properly, confusing declaration of intent with purposeful action, believing systemic reform means launching of program rather than implementing process of continuous improvement, pursuing too many initiatives rather than focusing on continuous improvement, were all discussed in chapter 2. And strategies for overcoming these barriers and for coherent making were also examined in details in this chapter. This
Okay, Tuan.
Yeah.
I noticed that this book only has 5 chapters, yeah? So you have talked about the first 2 chapters, but why there is still no hint how the systemic PLC should be done?
Okay, so this book actually doesn't give us formula and the how-to. It's more of a roadmap of the general ideas on how to go about. That's why if we are looking for the details on the how-to implement the PLC, this is not the book. Okay. Okay. To further answer this question, we can look at the next chapter, which is the 3rd chapter, the loose-tight dilemma. Okay. The loose-tight dilemma discuss on how the approach on how to proceed with systemic PLC. Systemic change should the systemic change come from the top of the organization, or should it be from bottom upwards? In this chapter, the authors examine the rationale for both approaches and examine their impact using real examples from the education landscape. As I said earlier, this book is based on the education system in the US and the education landscape that are used as example or case in this book from the education system in the US. And there are sections in this chapter also discussing or suggestion of interdependence of the 2 approaches, that is the top-down and the bottoms-up strategies, and how to get the right balance of the 2 approaches. The examples discussed were the use of the common core state standards or the implementation by the districts, using examples to illustrate the 2-type approach, which operate on the assumption district officials and school leaders and teachers typically lack the knowledge, skills, and the motivation to implement the new standard. The central agency then proceed to draw up what and how to do it. And the 2 loose examples is where the central office leader merely provide teachers with the CCSS documents to individual teachers and leave the issue of implementation to each teacher to resolve without support and not expecting or no expectation of what teachers should do. Then this book proceeds in chapter 4 titled The Loose-Tight System in Action. In this chapter, they provide guidelines for how simultaneously loose and tight leadership, building shared knowledge and deep understanding. Here again, the emphasis for clarity over competence is reiterated, but with new competencies, clarity is generated with new knowledge and competencies of the why, of the what, and of the how things should be done. And how collaboration in creating guaranteed implemented curriculum. What monitoring progresses at school level, reciprocal accountabilities, and building ongoing adult learning in the system, fostering transparency and trust, and building an ongoing support. The last chapter, chapter 5, is sustaining the improvement process, conclude the book in rounding up what are the things, what are the foundation, and what are the conditions necessary for sustainability. Examples: coherence and clarity, commitment for long-term goal and short-term action, collective culture and collective responsibility, and dispersed leadership to sustain the reform. One thing that the authors again and again re-emphasize is the relentless focus on continuous improvement and the recognition and celebration of short-term win and the resolute leadership.
Okay, En.Aliyas, most of the things being said here are all based on book which was published in 2013. So it's been more than 8 years. Do you see any parallel implementations in the system?
In our education system, this is the transformation of the school system. What been said or discussed by the authors in this book, we can see a lot that has been taken up. So in answering your first question, why do I pick this book to do the book dissection? To me, is very relevant in what we're doing now, and revisiting what is discussed in this book may give us the opportunity to see where we are in relation to what we plan to proceed ahead, and to always continuously improve on what we are doing. Okay, so thank you, Puan Norana.
Terima kasih diucapkan kepada En.Aliyas bin Said, Pengarah Institut Pendidikan Guru Kampus Bahasa Antarabangsa, di atas sesi bedah buku beliau sebentar tadi. Diharapkan semua yang mengikuti sesi perkongsian ini dapat memanfaatkan setiap ilmu yang diperolehi, khususnya berkaitan dengan PLC ataupun komuniti pembelajaran profesional. Bagaimana kita semua memainkan peranan penting dalam organisasi pendidikan untuk membudayakan PLC. Ini termasuklah perkongsian kemahiran dan pengetahuan, membina hubungan yang berkualiti, merancang program berfokus, menggerakkan sumber sedia ada di persekitaran dan berkongsi kepimpinan dalam merealisasikan dasar pendidikan negara untuk membina modal insan berkualiti di masa hadapan.
Terima kasih Puan Hana. Jadi saya serahkan buku ini untuk simpanan pusat sumber untuk kepada sesiapa yang ingin membaca lagi buku ni.
Ucapan ribuan terima kasih kepada Tuan Pengarah kerana sudi menyumbangkan buku yang telah dibedah pada hari ini untuk dijadikan salah satu koleksi rujukan di Pusat Sumber RPG KBA. Oleh itu, bagi warga IPG KBA yang berminat untuk membaca buku ini dengan lebih mendalam, bolehlah datang berkunjung ke pusat sumber untuk membaca di sini atau membuat pinjaman. Oleh itu, program kita sudah sampai ke penghujungnya. Saya mengambil kesempatan ini untuk mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih kepada semua yang mengikuti program ini dari mula hingga akhir. Kita jumpa lagi pada bulan hadapan untuk episod yang akan datang dengan sesi bedah buku oleh Yang Berbahagia Datin Dr. Bushra binti Ali, Timbalan Pengarah Institut Pendidikan Guru Kampus Bahasa Antarabangsa. Dengan ini saya akhiri program dengan ucapan Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera. Budaya IPG, budaya membaca. Kita jumpa lagi.